Hello, my name is Dr. Cheryl Meyer, and today, we're looking at the ocean. Oh, there's the sun. Okay, so we're reading through this book by Evelyn Underhill. She inspired C.S. Lewis and Tolkien and Charles Williams and all these other people. It's Mysticism, the study of the development and nature of spiritual consciousness. How you develop your spiritual consciousness. I can't see what you're seeing. Oh, here. Now I show up. Okay, I have a stand here, but we're going to just start. So this is a series, and you can look at the playlist on my YouTube channel. I haven't uploaded this anywhere else yet. Maybe I will in the future. So anyway, you can always start here or begin at the beginning of the playlist. We're on a really good chapter right now. And we'll just go from here. All right. I always read for about an hour so that you can set aside that time, and you can always speed this up 2 times speed if you can understand what I'm saying and you want to. I couldn't find this book anywhere online. I listened to a lot of books on Audible, and so I was going to read it because I wanted to get to it. And then I was just like, I will just read it for all of us. And so I hike out here, and that's the panorama. Look at this. Look at this. It's amazing. Yeah, look, I brought my dog. She's protecting. Are you protecting us? Anyway, hey, it's okay. Leia, Princess Leia. All right, I'll set this here and hope for the best. We're kind of getting the sun ray, but not the sun yet. I don't know how to. I have technical problems sometimes because I'm more of a mystic and not in my technical brain sometimes. All right. Let's start. What I say to my kids is like, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. But this is pretty awesome. I was in the parking lot last time at a children's hospital, so much. All right. Oh, hopefully that didn't make you dizzy. Okay, we'll go from here. All right. So we were on page 88 before. We're on the characteristics of mysticism. And we just finished this paragraph. I'm a psychologist for the past 20 plus years. And so sometimes, and I've studied mysticism and had very mystic experiences. So sometimes if I need to, or if it's going to make something more clear, I explain things in here. So this is kind of like a book study as well, but I do my best to just keep reading as well. Okay, I'll go a couple sentences before. Now and again, something stings it into consciousness, and man is caught up to the spiritual level, catches a glimpse of the, quote, secret plan, then hints of a marvelous truth, a unity whose note is ineffable peace, shine in created things, awakening in the self, a sentiment of love, adoration, and awe. Its life is enhanced. The barrier of personality is broken. Man escapes the sense world, ascends to the apex of his spirit, and enters for a brief period into the more extended life of the all. And she capitalizes all, A-L-L, or just the beginning. So you're for a brief period into the more extended life of the all. It's so amazing how this always turns out. Because I was meditating on the way up here, it was an hour hike to get here, and I was meditating on that passage in Isaiah, and it was exactly showing this sentence. Even though we read it last time, I forgot that we read it last time. It says they will run and not grow weary, and they will walk and not grow faint, and it's like, they will mount up on wings like eagles. When you go into and have this expansive view, let me tap on my phone so you can see this expansive view of the whole ocean. I'll go slow. And I was over this canyon right here. You see everything. It's like you do become one with the all. You see everything from a bird's eye view, and everything in life. All these difficulties they're so different now when you see it from this higher perspective, when you see it from the vantage point of all of history and all of time and all of everything, all of love in motion, and the good and the bad that we experience here. Anyway, we're whoa. Oh good, it's still videoing. I forgot the thing broke, so it's not connected. But we're getting an experience of that now. We're getting in this view that we have. We're getting a picture of that all. You're getting experience of it in video form while we're reading this book. It's just amazing. Hold on, sorry, I'm gonna have to wipe this off so that you don't have dirt in the camera because it just fell in the dirt. All right. Oops. There. Oh good, the sun's going down a bit so we can see. I had to be holding it. All right. I know, if someday I get super famous, someone can make lots of bloopers from all the times that I moved my phone. But those will be funny as well. And we still got to it. We just had to have a little patience. Sometimes that happens in our lives. We have to get through the difficulties. All right. Okay, so its life is enhanced, the sentiment of love, adoration, and awe. Its life, awakening in the self a sentiment of love, adoration, and awe. Its life is enhanced. The barrier of personality is broken. Man escapes the sense world of your five senses, right? And ascends to the apex of his or her spirit and enters for a brief period into the more extended life of the all. This intuition of the real, with a capital R, R-E-A-L, the real, lying at the root of the visible world and sustaining its life, is present in a modified form in the arts. Perhaps it were better to say must be present if these arts are to justify themselves as the heightened forms of experience. It is this which gives to them that peculiar vitality, that strange power of communicating a poignant emotion, half torment and half joy, which baffle their more rational interpreters. I hope we're not just getting the reflection of the sun. I think you are. I mean, the sun will go down in a second and we'll get more, but I like getting the sun there. And then that's the reflection of the sun in the ocean. And I'm just sitting on bushes down here. All right. We got it. You got it, Leah. Good. All right. Perhaps it were better to say must be present if these arts are to justify themselves as heightened forms of experience. It is this which gives to them that peculiar vitality, that strange power of communicating a poignant emotion, half torment and half joy, which baffle their more rational interpreters. We know that the picture, which is like a photograph, the building, which is at once handsome and commodious, the novel, which is a perfect transcript of life, fail to satisfy us. It is difficult to say why this should be so, unless it were because these things have neglected their true business, which was not to reproduce the illusions of ordinary men, but to catch and translate for us something of that, quote, secret plan, that reality which the artistic consciousness is able, in a measure, to perceive. Painting, as well as music and poetry, exists and exalts in immortal thought, says Blake. Here, I'll just do that as a quote. It's a quote. I didn't see these as quotation marks, but quote, painting as well as music and poetry exists and exalts in immortal thoughts, says Blake. I think that's William Blake, the poet, she's saying. That life-enhancing power, which has been recognized by modern critics as a supreme quality of good painting, has its origin in this contact of the artistic mind with the archetypal, or, if you like, the transcendental world. The underlying verity of things, verity, like the underlying truth of things, like Plato talks about the archetypes or the perfect, and we're getting the shadow forms here. But there's the realities up in heaven. A living critic, I just added that. Okay, back to the book. A living critic in whom poetic genius has brought about the unusual alliance of intuition with scholarship testifies to this same truth when he or she, I'm just adding the she sometimes, but she's meaning he or she, says of the ideals which governed early Chinese painting, quote, in this theory, every work of art is thought of as an incarnation of the genius of rhythm, manifesting the living spirit of things with a clearer beauty and intenser power than the gross impediments of complex matter allow to be transmitted to our senses in the visible world around us. A picture is conceived as a sort of apparition from a more real world of essential life. So just like what I was talking about with Plato, the shadows and the forms, and we're in the shadowlands. There's a movie about C.S. Lewis that Anthony Hopkins played C.S. Lewis, and it was called Shadowlands, and it's talking about that Plato, talking about the people that live in a cave, and instead of going out in the world, they're just looking at this cave and looking at the shadows, and they think that's all there is to life. And they don't realize that they're staying in a cave when they could go out. I think they could go out, as far as I remember. Hold on. Excuse me while I have a drink of water. I invite you to just be present here with me. If you're just listening, then you can just be present wherever you are. Feel yourself in your body. It's such a beautiful day. It almost feels like summer, but it's a little bit chilly. I brought a sweatshirt for the way back. And it smelled so good when I opened the front door today. It smelled this air. All right. The more real world of essential life, the quote, more real world of essential life, end quote, is the world in which the free soul of the great mystic dwells, hovering like the six-winged seraph before the face of the Absolute, before the face of God, divine love. The artist, too, may cross its boundaries in his or her brief moments of creation, but she cannot stay. She comes back to us, bearing its tidings with Dante's cry upon her lips. Non eran de cielo le proprie pene, se non che la mia mente fu percossa, de un fulgor in che sua voglia vene. Okay, my Italian is not, I only know un vino rosso, per favore. Grazie. I think that means a red wine, please. I'll put it up here. Look, if someone wants to translate, I often will put it up on the screen. So if someone wants to translate this later in the comments, I welcome you to. It's this part right here, right? There's a free copyright book, so we can do that. The vino rosa. Okay, hold on. Vino. Una stanza, por favore. I need a room, please. Grazie, prego. I don't know this one. I can't read Dante in his original language. I would love that. So I don't know what she said. Let's see if she wrote it. Sometimes she writes it on the bottom. Sometimes she doesn't. It says, "Oh, not for this were my wings fitted." See, just like the wing. Okay. Sorry, I'll read it all. "Not for this were my wings fitted, save only that my mind was smitten by a lightning flash, wherein came to it its desire." Here, I'll read it again. With poetry, I was taught you need to read it 3 times aloud in order to start to get it. Are you all right, Leia? All right. "Not for this were my wings fitted, save only that my mind was smitten by a lightning flash, wherein came to it its desire." Not for this were my wings fitted, save only that my mind was smitten by a lightning flash, wherein came to it its desire. Wow. Sovoglia vene. The mystic may say, is indeed bound to say with Saint Bernard, "My secret to myself." That's a quote. "My secret to myself. Try how he will, his stammering and awestruck reports can hardly be understood but by those who are already in the way." The beginning, when Christianity was first about, it was called the way. But Augustine, there's a quote from Augustine that says, Saint Augustine, the thing that which we now call Christianity was here before we started calling it that. And that's a mystery, so I'm not going to get into all the theological disputes with that. But when Christ came, if you will, it's kind of like he's just continuing to walk in the true way. And, maybe if we understand it, fulfilled it in its fullest path. But then the people after him were called the people, that were in the way. Like you can know people if they're in the way. Anyway, she was saying, his stammering of St. Bernard, right, and awestruck reports can hardly be understood but by those who are already in the way. She doesn't capitalize way, anyway. But the artist cannot act thus. On him has been laid the duty of expressing something of that which he or she perceives. He is bound to tell his love. In his worship of perfect beauty, faith must be balanced by works. By means of veils and symbols, he must interpret his free vision, his glimpse of the burning bush, to other men. He is the mediator between his brethren and the divine, for art is the link between appearance and reality. Wow. Wow. We could just sit here for a whole hour on that sentence. He or she, right, is the mediator between his brothers and sisters and the divine, for art is the link between appearance and reality. Art is the link between appearance and reality. And she quotes this as, in this connection, Godfernaux, Godfernaux, this person, Revue Philosophique, February 1902, has a highly significant remark to the effect that Romanticism represents the invasion of secular literature by mystic or religious emotion. It is, he says, the secularization of the inner life. Wow. Wow, maybe the Romantic period was doing that, but it's still expressing this, the secularization of the inner life. Wow. It's like all of my job from before to this and from hereafter is about this art linking between appearance and reality. Anyway, because I do these soul songs where I'm connecting us with our soul path through popular songs, because I just have this vision from doing this so often. Anyway, but we do not call everyone who has these partial and artistic intuitions of reality a mystic, any more than we call everyone a musician who has learned to play the piano. The true mystic is the person in which such powers transcend the merely artistic and visionary stage and are exalted to the point of genius, in whom the transcendental consciousness can dominate the normal consciousness, and who has definitely surrendered himself or herself to the embrace of reality with a capital R, who has definitely surrendered himself to the embrace of reality. As artists stand in a peculiar relation to the phenomenal world, receiving rhythms and discovering truths and beauties which are hidden from other men, so this true mystic stands in a peculiar relation to the transcendental world, there experiencing the onslaught of what must remain for us unimaginable delights. His consciousness is transfigured in a particular way. He lives at different levels of experience from the other people, and this of course means that he or she, I'm going to sometimes interpose she, means that she sees a different world, since the world as we know it is the product of specific scraps or aspects of reality acting upon a normal and untransfigured consciousness. Hence, her mysticism is no isolated vision, no arbitrary glimpse of reality, but a complete system of life. A syntagma, to use Euclid's expressive term, as other men are immersed in and react to natural or intellectual life, so the mystic is immersed in and reacts to spiritual life. She moves toward that utter identification with its interests, which she calls union with God. He or she has been called a lonely soul. He might more properly be described as a lonely body, for his soul, I was feeling this on the way up here, peculiarly responsive, sends out and receives communications upon every side. That's the thing. It feels like a lonely body, but not lonely at all, because you're always connected to the divine, the mystic communion of all the saints, of everything, of all that is, Every flower is part of the oneness, and you're entering into that oneness. Anyway, the earthly artist, because perception brings with it the imperative longing for expression, tries to give us in color, sound, or words a hint of his ecstasy, his glimpse of truth. Only those who have tried know how small a fraction of his vision he can, under the most favorable circumstances, contrive to represent. Represent is like represent. When we try to represent what I'm experiencing here, by sitting here, experiencing this, you're experiencing it in video form, in a small video, not even the panoramic. And I'm getting it in 3D, and someone that is blind, that's only listening to this, is not experiencing what you're experiencing with your vision, which is we're overlooking the sun going down over the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. We're in Southern California. How could you put this in words if you're here with me, Like with my dog who walked up this hill with me, and hiked here and feeling it in my physical body. Breathing this air. All right, so as other men or women are immersed in and react to the natural or intellectual life, so the mystic is immersed in and reacts to the spiritual life. She moves toward the utter identification with its interest, which she calls union with God. She has been called a lonely soul. She might more properly be described as a lonely body, for her soul, peculiarly responsive, sends out and receives communication upon every side. The earthly artist, because perception brings with it the imperative longing for expression, tries to give us in color, sound, or words a hint of her ecstasy, her glimpse of truth. Only those who have tried know how small a fraction of his vision he can, under the most favorable circumstance, contrive to represent. The mystic, too, tries very hard to tell us an unwilling world the only secret. Listen to this sentence. The mystic, too, tries very hard to tell an unwilling world the only secret. Wow. But in his case, the difficulties are enormously increased. First, there is the huge disparity between his unspeakable experience and the language which will most nearly approach it. Next, there is the great gulf fixed between his mind and the mind of the world. His audience must be bewitched as well as addressed, caught up to something of his state before they can be made to understand. Maybe that's why my intuition always brings me here, to some kind of beautiful landscape, unless we don't have that. I'm waving at you. So that this, his audience, her audience must be bewitched as well as addressed, caught up to something of her state before they can be made to understand. Were he a musician, it is probable that he could give his message to other musicians in terms of that art, far more accurately than language will ever allow him to do. For we must remember that there is no excuse but that of convenience for the preeminence amongst the modes of expression which we accord to words. I used to go to this place called Largo in Los Angeles with Elliot Smith, this friend of mine who was a musician, and we'd listen to this guy named John Bryan every Friday night. And people would come, and lots of different people, like Colin Hay, the singer from Men at Work, and I don't know, people would come and sing. Jack Black was there, sing on stage on different occasions. And it's like jazz musicians or whoever would play, and they'd go da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Like they do these nuances, and I wouldn't get it at all because I didn't play music back then. And everyone would just laugh in the crowd because they're all musicians, so they understood what was being communicated. And I was like, what? What just happened? What? And so we can all have that. Just be humble, have humility and understand that there's a much, much bigger world, a bigger story, a bigger word, the logos, the light that Jesus says, you are the light of the world. And he says, I am the light of the world, So it's like light. Like, how can you explain light, true light? Anyway, so these correspond so well to the physical plane and its adventures that we forget that they have but the faintest of relations with transcendental things. Even the artist, before he can make use of them, is bound to rearrange them in accordance with the laws of rhythm, obeying unconsciously the rule by which all arts, quote, tend to approach the condition of music, end quote. So too the mystic. Mysticism, the most romantic thing in the universe from one point of view, the art of arts, their source and also their end, finds naturally enough its closest correspondence in the most purely artistic and most deeply significant of all forms of expression. The mystery of music is seldom realized by those who so easily accept its gifts. Yet, of all the arts, music alone shares with the great mystical literature the power of waking us to response to the life movement of the universe, brings us, we know not how, news of its exultant passions and its incomparable peace. Beethoven heard the very voice of reality, with a capital R, and little of it escaped when he translated it for our ears. I'm just reading, I don't know which part of Beethoven she's saying, but she's talking about in the footnotes. Since this passage was written, M. Herbert's brilliant monograph Les Divines, 1907, has come into my hands. I take from his pages two examples of the analogy between mystical and musical emotion. First, that of Gay, capital G-A-Y, a man here, who had, quote, the soul, the heart, and the head full of music of another beauty than that which is formulated by sounds. Next, that of Rosie Brooks, who, in a passage that might have been written by Keats, speaks of contemplation and love as, quote, two heavenly pipes, which, blown upon by the Holy Spirit, play ditties of no tone. Anyway, the medieval mind, back to the book, back out of the footnotes, back to where we were. The medieval mind, more naturally mystical than ours, and therefore more sharply aware of that part which rhythmic harmony plays in the words of nature and of grace, gave to music a cosmic importance, discerning its operation in many phenomena which we now attribute to that dismal figment, law. Quote, "There are three kinds of music," says Hugh of St. Victor, "the music of the worlds, the music of humanity, the music of instruments. Of the music of the worlds, one is of the elements, another of the planets, another of time. Of that which is of the elements, one is of number, another of weights, another of measure. One of that which is of the planets, one is of that which is of the planets, one is of place, another of motion, another of nature. Of that which is time, one is of the days, and the vicissitudes of light and darkness, another of the months, and the waxing and waning of the moon, another of the years and the changes of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Of the music of humanity, one is of the body, another of the soul, and another in the connection that is between them. Thus the life of the visible and invisible universe consists in a supernal fugue. One contemplative, at least, Richard Rolle of Hampole, the father of English mysticism, was acutely aware of this music of the soul, discerning in its joyous periods a response to the measured harmonies of the spiritual universe. In that beautiful description of his inward experience, which is one of the jewels of mystical literature, nothing is more remarkable than his constant and deliberate employment of musical imagery. This alone, it seems, could catch and translate for him the wild rapture of transcendent life, the condition of joyous and awakened love to which the mystic passes when his purification is at an end, is to him, above all else, the state of the song. Okay, so the condition of joyous and awakened love to which the mystic passes when his purification is at an end is to him, above all else, the state of song, with a capital S. He does not see reality, he hears it. For him, as for St. Francis of Assisi, it is a heavenly melody, intolerably sweet. Song I call, he says, when in a plenteous soul of the sweetness of eternal love, with burning is taken. Hold on. There's some people right above that are just really loud. Hold on really quick. I'm gonna, all right. So, hold on. She's in a, go ahead, Leah. Go bark. They're watching the sunset. Okay, maybe I'll move. Hello. All right. I'll go to a different place. Hold on, Leia. Hold on. Hold on, I gotta get Leia. Okay. I can't really okay. Anyway. We'll stand up here for a second until maybe they'll pass. Okay, can you, hello? All right, that's funny. All right, I'm gonna, maybe, let's pick everything up. There. She's gone. Sometimes, these things in life will just pass. But I don't want all that bickering and stuff on this video if we don't have to have it. Good girl, Leia. Good girl. Good girl. I can't see. It just shows us, though. I mean, you can be in this beautiful place and you're caught up in your own story. And I'm not picking on her. I'm just saying you're caught up in that story. So you don't see the beauty that's right in front of you, You don't see it. All right, I might do this let's just leave it like that. All right. Sorry for the interruption. Ow, maybe it'll play out in, Shoot. How was it? Like this. I don't want to turn around the video halfway through. All right. Okay. All right. I didn't know whether to bring the dog or not. Leia. Good girl. Good girl, yeah. Good girl. Okay. Like, it's just so beautiful. Okay, I'll wave so you know, like, we're starting the book again. If you're fast forwarding back to this part, or if you're re-listening. One contemplative, at least, Richard Rolle of Hampole, the father of English mysticism, was acutely aware of this music of the soul, discerning in its joyous periods a response to the measured harmonies of the spiritual universe. In that beautiful description of his inward experience, which is one of the jewels of mystical literature, nothing is more remarkable than his constant and deliberate employment of musical imagery. This alone, it seems, could catch and translate for him the wild rapture of transcendent life, the condition of joyous and awakened love to which the mystic passes when his purification is at an end, is to him, above all else, the state of song. Okay, we read that. And we were talking about St. Francis of Assisi. Okay, reality, he, quote, hears it. For him, as for St. Francis of Assisi, it is a heavenly melody, intolerably sweet. Song I call, he says, when in a plenteous soul the sweetness of eternal love with burning is taken, and thought into song is turned, and the mind into full sweet sound is changed. He who experiences this joyous exaltation, quote, says not his prayers like other righteous men, end quote, but, quote, is taken into marvelous mirth and goodly sound, being descended into him, as it were, with notes, his prayers he sings. So Gertrude Moore, that was St. Francis of Assisi, I think. So Gertrude Moore says, "Oh, let me sit alone, silent to all the world, and it to me, that I may learn the song of love." We could sit the whole time with that as well. Look. I'll just let me say it again so that you guys can meditate on that when I bring this thing down to me, the stand. So Gertrude Moore said, "Oh, let me sit alone, silent to all the world, and it to me, that I may learn the song of love." Well, I hope you got to contemplate on that. We're just going to make do again. Rolle's own experience of mystic joy seems actually to have come to him in this form, the perception of his exalted consciousness presenting themselves to his understanding under musical conditions, as other mystics have received them in the form of pictures or words. I give, in his own words, the charming account of his passage from the first state of, quote, burning love to the second state of songful love, from calor to canor, when into song of joy meditation is turned. In the night before supper, as I my psalms sung, as it were the sound of readers, or rather singers about me I beheld, whilst also praying to heaven. With all desires I took heed, suddenly in what manner I wot not. In me the sound of song I felt, and likely as heavenly melody I took with me dwelling in mind. Forsooth my thought continually to mirth of song was changed, and as it were the same that loving I had thought, and in prayers and psalms had said, in sound I showed. The song, however, is a mystic melody having little in common with its clumsy image, earthly music. Bodily song lets it, and, quote, noise of janglers makes it turn again to thought. Quote, for sweet ghostly song accords not with outward song, that which in churches and elsewhere is used. It discords much, for all that is man's voice is formed with bodily ears to be heard, but among angels, tunes, it has an acceptable melody, and with marvel it is commended of them that have known it. I just keep thinking of David, how David said, I will sing a new song, Psalm 40. And he sings it all over. All of the Psalms are songs of David, Not all of them are of David, but. All right. Okay, just there. Okay. Okay. Whatever. So it discords much, for all that is man's voice is formed with bodily ears to be heard, but among angels' tunes it has an acceptable melody, and with marvel it is commended of them that we have known it. To others it is incommunicable. Worldly lovers soothly words or ditties of our songs may know, for the words they read, but the tone and sweetness of that song they may not learn. Such symbolism as this, a living symbolism of experience and action as well as of statement, seems almost essential to mystical expression. The mind must employ some device of the kind of its transcendent perceptions, wholly unrelated as they are to the phenomena which intellect is able to deal, are ever to be grasped by the surface consciousness. Sometimes the symbol and the perception which it represents become fused in that consciousness, and the mystic's experience then presents itself to him as visions or voices, which we must look upon as the garment he himself provided to veil that reality upon which no man may look and live. It's said in the Old Testament. It said, hopefully that was still recording. I got a low battery thing and it blurred the camera. It said that, in the olden days, that no person could look upon God and live, I guess I get to do my video my old-fashioned way, where I just hold it, right? It's such a beautiful sunset. When Moses or other people saw God, or they saw the back of God or whatever, Elijah, right? Or Jesus' transfiguration, it's like, but really Moses and Elijah, it's like they wondered why they were able, I can't remember who it was. It may have been Israel. I saw God and I still lived, or something like that. There's some verse about that. The nature of this garment will be largely conditioned by his temperament, as in Roll's evident bias towards music. St. Catherine of Genoa's leaning towards the abstract conceptions of fire and light, and also by his theological education and environment, as in the highly dogmatic visions and auditions of St. Gertrude, Suso, St. Catherine of Siena, the Blessed Angela of Foligno, above all of St. Teresa. Oh, I love St. Teresa of Avila, whose marvelous self-analysis provide the classic account of these attempts of the mind to translate transcendental intuitions into concepts which it can deal. She saw all of like our soul or the kingdom of God as like a diamond or a crystal deep within us, and God is living in that kingdom, and there are many mansions in it, many rooms, and most people live on the outer courts of life and don't even enter into the castle. They don't have access to that which we're all meant to have access to, right? The greatest mystics, however, Ruysbroek, St. John of the Cross, St. Teresa herself in her later stages, distinguish clearly between the indicible reality, indicible, indicible reality, which they perceive, and the image under which they describe it. Again and again, they tell us with Dionysius and Eckhart, Meister Eckhart, right, that the object of their contemplation hath no image, or with St. John of the Cross that, quote, the soul can never attain to the height of the divine union, so far as it is possible in this life, through the medium of any forms or figures. There's a verse I was just reading in Isaiah on my way up here, like I said, the passage. I can't remember where it was, but where it says, they will run and not grow weary. He's like, Isaiah's like, I think it's 37 or 40. He's like, haven't you heard? You know, this is the eternal God that created all of the earth, you know. This God neither slumbers nor sleeps, and his world, you know, God is beyond he or she, like the world of the divine, the absolute, is unexpressible, you know. He said that in the verse, the same thing as St. John of the Cross found from experience, you know. Oh, this stick is in the way, right? Let's go again and see if this... We'll get the sunset. All right. Therefore, the attempt which has sometimes been made to identify mysticism with such forms and figures, with visions, voices, and supernatural favors, is clearly wrong. The highest and most divine things which it is given us to see and to know, says Dionysius, the Areopagite, plainly, quote, are in some ways the expression of all that which the sovereign nature of God includes, an expression which reveals to us that which escapes all thought, and which has its seat beyond the heights of heaven. That's in De Mystica Theologica of Dionysius the Areopagite. The mystic, as a rule, cannot wholly do without symbol and image, inadequate to his vision, though they must always be, for his experience must be expressed if it is to be communicated, and its actuality is inexpressible except in some sidelong way, some hint or parallel which will stimulate the dormant intuition of the reader and convey, as all poetic language does, something beyond its surface sense. I wish we weren't so interrupted and I could have expressed or read ahead some of these passages, you know, so that I could read them in that still way. But I include the PDF, so you can always go reread this part, you know. Hence, the enormous part which is played in all mystical writings by symbolism and imagery, and also by that rhythmic and exalted language which induces in sensitive persons something of the languid ecstasy of dream. The close connection between rhythm and heightened states of consciousness is as yet little understood. Its further investigation will probably throw much light on ontological as well as psychological problems. Mystical, no less than musical and poetic perception, tends naturally, we know not why, to prevent itself in rhythmical periods, a feature which is also strongly marked in writings obtained in the automatic state. So constant is this law in some subjects that Baron von Hugel, in his biography of St. Catherine of Genoa, has adopted the presence or absence of rhythm as a test whereby to distinguish the genuine utterances of the saint from those wrongly attributed to her by successive editors of her legend. That's so strange what she's saying, because I will hear quotes and someone will be like, Rumi said this or Bob Marley said that. I'm like, no, that's, or C.S. Lewis for sure. I often can tell with C.S. Lewis. I'm like, that is not a C.S. Lewis quote. That it's not a Plato quote. And I don't even know all of, it's just kind of like if you hear someone's voice doing a commercial or something and you're like, I know who that actor is. You know, it's kind of like that. And lo and behold, oftentimes, usually like 90% of the time, it's not that person, you know. All kinds of symbolic language come naturally to the articulate mystic, who is usually a literary artist as well, so naturally that he sometimes forgets to explain that his utterance is but symbolic, a desperate attempt to translate the truth of that world into the beauty of this, that world into the beauty of this, you know, that world into the beauty of this. It is here that mysticism joins hands with music and poetry. Had this fact always been recognized by its critics, they would have been saved from many regrettable and some ludicrous misconceptions. Symbol, the clothing which the spiritual borrows from the material plane, is a form of artistic expression, like Jesus being born in a stable among animals. You know, it's like C.S. Lewis has the book in the Narnia books where the animals could once talk, and then the bears were going back into bear form, you know. But it's like we have this ability, they call it theosis, to be godified, you know. God became man so that man could become God, is what the Orthodox say. And he meets us in the stable. He's born in the stable, you know. It's a symbol there that there wasn't room for him in the inn. People didn't recognize that the king, you know, of all kings was to be born, or that the Messiah, you know, I don't say you have to understand Christ as this, but it's a symbol. Like, they gave us the symbol of, I've contemplated a lot that he was born in a manger, you know. That is to say, it is not literal but suggestive, though the artist who uses it may sometimes lose sight of this distinction. Hence, the persons who imagine that the, quote, spiritual marriage of St. Catherine or St. Teresa veils a perverted sexuality, that the vision of the Sacred Heart involved an incredible anatomical experience, or that the divine inebriation of the Sufis is the apotheosis of drunkenness, they do but advertise their ignorance of the mechanism of the arts, like the lady who thought that Blake must be mad because he said that he had touched the sky with his finger. You know, I saw these Sufi poets when I was in Turkey. I mean, Sufi dancers. Rumi was a Sufi, mystic Sufi poet, but I saw these Sufi dancers, and when they were doing the whirling thing, it's like they were divesting themselves of ego, like layers and layers, veils of egotism and personality that they were letting go off of themselves. That's what I was seeing in the dance. Further, the study of the mystics, the keeping company, however humbly, with their minds, brings with it as music or poetry does, but in a far greater degree a strange exhilaration, as if we were brought near to some mighty source of being, were at last on the verge of the secret which all seek. The symbols displayed, the actual words employed, when we analyze them, are not enough to account for such effect. It is rather that these messages from the waking transcendental self of another stir our own deeper selves in their sleep. That's why Jesus says, you are the light of the world. I am the light of the world. He says a light must not be hidden. You're not meant to be hidden. It's not meant to be put under a bushel, but set in the middle of the room to light up the whole, like this, the whole sky is lit up. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but the whole sky is still lit up by the sun, you know? When you awake to this higher consciousness and to this deeper reality, into this deeper presence of the oneness that you are part of, that you were made out of, you wake up other people just by your awakeness, your awareness. So there's like this quote, awareness changes everything. It is rather that these messages from the waking transcendental self of another stir our own deeper selves in their sleep. It were hardly an extravagance to say that those writings which are the outcome of true and first-hand mystical experience may be known by this power of imparting to the reader the sense of exalted and extended life. All mystics, says Saint Martin, speak the same language, for they come from the same country. The deep, undying life which nests within us came from that country too, and it is recognized, and it recognizes the accents of home. And it recognizes the accents of home, though it cannot always understand what they would say. Now returning to our original undertaking, that of defining, if we can, the characteristics of true mysticism, I think that we have already reached a point at which William James celebrated 4 marks of the mystic state: ineffability, noetic quality, transiency, and passivity will fail to satisfy us. In their place, I propose to set out, illustrate, and I hope justify 4 other rules or notes which may be applied as tests to any given case which claims to take rank amongst the mystics. 1. True mysticism is active and practical, not passive and theoretical. I hope my camera, my phone didn't break. And the sun is about to set over this island called Catalina Island. My dog is there. She was the microphone. One, true mysticism is active and practical. It's not passive and theoretical. It is an organic life process, a something which the whole self does, not something as to which its intellect holds an opinion. Its aims are wholly transcendental and spiritual. It is in no way concerned with adding to, this is number 2, its aims are wholly transcendental and spiritual. I gotta watch the sunset. Good girl. Good girl. Oh, sit. Anyway, I'll come back to this next time. But she says, and like, what's the point of reading a mystical book if I can't stop for the end of the sunset? All right. Yeah, I gotta go. Okay, I'm on page 96. All right, much love. Thanks so much for being here with me. Share this with other people who are of the like nature or who want to study mysticism in its real form. She talks at the beginning, the last video, the one before this, talks about the distinction between mysticism and magic. Sometimes magic, people that practice that will say it's mysticism, but it's not, it's different. There's a true study of this in nature. And anyway, I wish you so much love. Look at this panorama. And there's mountains behind me that way if I stood up. All right, much love. Thanks.